Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much to those of you who have subscribed. It's been a while since my last video. I had a lot of stuff come up last year, but I'm doing a lot better now and hoping to get back into making videos and podcasts again. And also, if you are into blogs, I have been blogging at classicsconsidered.com, so check that out if that's something that interests you. Today I thought I would do a short video on books I want to read in 2020. So kind of taking an idea from the beauty vloggers, I would do a shop my stash, so books that I own and have not read yet. And a lot of these books I'm going to be talking about are secondhand, so definitely be checking those secondhand shops for books because it's a great way to build your collection for not too much money. So let's just get started here. The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. This past year I read The House of Mirth with some friends, and I didn't really like The House of Mirth, but I really liked Edith Wharton's writing style, so I'm looking forward to reading this book, which I already had. And I really like the cover design, as a side note. Next up is Brave New World by Huxley. I'm pretty sure most people have heard of this book. It's been compared to 1984, which I did read this past year. And I actually started this one, but I decided to put it off because it was pretty bleak, and I just had so much of that from 1984. I wasn't quite ready for this, but I'm going to try to read it in 2020 and compare it with 1984. And we'll see what I think of that, but based on the beginning, it looks like it's very different in tone and style and setting, so it should be interesting. Next couple of books I want to read are some plays by Henrik Ibsen. A Doll's House I've thought about reading for a long time now, and this one I'm familiar with from classical music. I don't know if you're familiar with In the Hall of the Mountain King, but that song is related to this story, this fairy tale, I think. So that should be interesting to read those two together, and I think this will be my first time reading Ibsen. Actually, I think I read, I did read one of his plays. I can't remember the title of it now, but I didn't remember it very well apparently. So yes, this will be effectively my introduction to Ibsen. I read Wuthering Heights actually 3 times a long time ago when I was first getting into classics as a child. I actually don't remember it very well. I mean, I remember the basic plot, but I remember getting pretty confused by it as well. So this will almost be reading it for the first time, and I'm hoping I like it better this time because I really didn't like it before. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that, actually, reading it now that I'm older. So that covers most of the fiction that I plan to read next year. There's actually a few other books I want to read that I don't have, but I wanted to focus in this video on books that I already own. So moving over to nonfiction, The Selected Poems of Emily Dickinson. I actually read a few of her poems 2 years ago, I think, and really enjoyed them. So I decided to get this Barnes & Noble version, and it may include more poems than I've read before. I'm actually not sure. One of my favorites is the very first one in here. This is my letter to the world that never wrote to me, the simple news that nature told. And there's the airplane. Okay, let's try that again. This is my letter to the world that never wrote to me, the simple news that nature told with tender majesty. Her message is committed to hands I cannot see. For love of her, sweet countrymen, judge tenderly of me. It's a good one. There's a few other favorites of mine too, but I don't have them written down. Anyway, that should be a good one to to read next year, and also poetry. I've got Chinese poems edited by Arthur Waley. And this is one I definitely picked up secondhand. You can see it's a pretty old copy. But I was really excited because it has a lot of poems in here, and I'm not particularly familiar with Chinese poetry. I know that this also includes Mulan, the original poem that talks about Mulan, so I'm really excited about that. One of my focuses for 2020 is reading about Chinese, well, really Asian history, and so I thought this would be a good book to pair with some of that history. Speaking of reading focuses, I have been trying to read more philosophy in recent years, and now moving into more about Christian history, theology, those kinds of topics, which I really haven't read anything about to speak of. So I found this at the thrift store earlier this year, and I think now would be a good time to read it. This is Descartes' Meditations and Other Metaphysical Writings. And I don't know if I'm going to understand this, but I plan to read it very slowly. But it's a classic, so I'm sure there will be something good in it, or at least thought-provoking. Now we're moving into some history books. I'm really into history. I've been into it ever since college. This is The Emperor's Sea Eagle, a memoir of the attack on Pearl Harbor and the War on the Pacific. I hadn't even heard of this book before. Again, I found this secondhand, but it sounds really fascinating. It's a memoir by someone who was on the opposite side, and I think that will be really interesting to get that perspective. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I've got To Begin the World Over Again, Lawrence of Arabia from Damascus to Baghdad. And this is a book I'm really excited to read because I've read several Lawrence of Arabia biographies, but this book I think takes sort of a cross between a history book and a biography, so I think it'll be pretty interesting. And it's not too long. Some of the books I've read previously were very lengthy, so I'm really curious how this summarizes both his life and the events that he lived through. It's pretty highly rated, I think, so looking forward to that very much. I love reading books about T.E. Lawrence, in case it wasn't already evident from earlier videos. Okay, a couple more history-related books. Escape from the Antarctic. It's just an excerpt, really, from Shackleton's memoir. I already read the memoir, but I think it's a neat little book, and it focuses on... oh, let's see. This focuses specifically on when the ship was a wreck and they had to leave some people behind, and they set off in a small boat to try to get help, which is an amazing story, highly recommended, and I think this will be a good summary of that. The cover art is really cool too. This book is also an excerpt. Let's see, it's from Homage to Catalonia, which I haven't read, so this will, I guess, give me an idea of whether I might want to read the whole book. Okay, that just leaves two more books, which actually are fiction, and I don't really know if I'm going to read these next year, but it is a possibility. So I've got Master and Commander, the first book in the Aubrey and Maturin series. I am very familiar with the movie. I am a huge fan of the movie, but from what I can tell, this book is somewhat different than that, because I think the movie combines multiple plot lines from this very long series into a single story, and this is, this is the first episode, so we'll see. I tried to read it before and didn't really like it, comparing it to the movie. But I'm going to give it another chance because I really want to get into a series. I haven't read a series in years, and I like reading about Royal Navy fiction, so it's fun. And finally, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Fall of Gondolin. I was not planning to buy this, but again, I saw it secondhand and I thought I had to get it because this is, as it turns out, the last book that Christopher Tolkien is going to be publishing on behalf of his father. At least that's what I gathered from reading this introductory section. When J.R.R. Tolkien was recovering from trench fever in a military barracks in 1917, sketching out a story idea, he began to conceive of the world of Middle-earth. His very first creation was the fall of the elven city of Gondolin. So I really don't know much about this, but I am looking forward to reading it. I have read The Children of Húrin, and I'm trying to think. I've read The Fall of Arthur. I think those are the only two. There's been a whole series of these books that Christopher Tolkien has edited. Let's see. Yeah, The Fall of Arthur was really good. I still want to read Beowulf, which is Tolkien's translation. And of course, Beren and Luthien. Gotta read that. So, I've got a long ways to go with the Tolkien books, but I think that'll be fun. So, yeah, that's basically a glimpse of some of my reading for next year. There's going to be much more than that. If you want to see the full list, you can see it at goodreads.com/classicsconsidered. And if you have any ideas, I am totally open to that as well. Let me know what kind of videos you want to see on this channel, if any, and what you're reading next year. Thanks for watching.